Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the daily forecast for Friday, September 13th, 2024, on this day of the lovers. It is Venus's day, Freya's day, Frigga's day, the 23rd of Virgo, the 11th of Vine, the 23rd of Bear, and the 14th of Tumandir. Next up, we have our astrology for today. The sun is in Virgo, mutable earth, representing industry. The moon is second quarter Capricorn, cardinal earth, representing tradition. Mercury is in Virgo, mutable earth, representing linguistic skill. Venus is in Libra, cardinal air, representing harmony. Mars is in Cancer, cardinal water, which is seeking security. Jupiter is in Gemini, mutable air, representing questing. Saturn is retrograde Pisces, mutable water, which is to redefine dreams. Uranus is retrograding in Taurus, fixed earth, representing rebellion. Neptune is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which is about spiritual awakenings. And Pluto is retrograding in Capricorn, cardinal earth, representing transformations. So on our retrograde Saturn, it is about reclaiming your authority. For Uranus, reconsider how you rebel. For Neptune, reclaim your magic. For Pluto, reclaim your ability to regenerate. And for Chiron, restore the heroic spirit. Our moon phase is the waxing gibbous, which is about cultivating intentions. For the Capricorn moon, once again, remember to do strategize, do organize, do your planning. Don't mess around too much with delicate relationships, come into conflict with enforcement agencies, or be coldly strategic. So, on this day of Venus in particular, we have Libra Venus that is relaxing into harmony and a natural ebb and flow of energies, particularly between the masculine and the feminine. And this may conflict slightly with the Capricorn moon, that's a lot more mission focused. However, you can turn this to your advantage by using that lunar energy to plan a romantic evening for your sweeties. So, again, not the most happiest of bedfellows, but it's not so incompatible that you can't use it to your own benefit. So make the most of it. Use the energy for what it's good at rather than fuss too much about what the energy isn't good for. So, next up, we have our tarot of the day, which is the Queen of Swords. Queens represent the matriarchs, the pinnacle of female authority. For the suit of swords, think the rational masculine, projective energy, the air element, and thought. So, combining this energy with the queen energy, think a very highly rational woman. And indeed, that's one of the key words about intelligent, logical woman. Inner strength and truth. This isn't someone who is relying on the rest of the world to form her opinions. She's coming to her own internal determinations, and that is what she's operating off of. This also represents wisdom from experience, looking back on what has gone before, and not just personal experience, looking at the past experience of just human history. How do certain things tend to turn out when you have particular conditions? Is it a good outcome? Is it a bad outcome? Are there little exit ramps before things come to the absolute worst conclusion? That's the kind of wisdom that this is also embodying in this card. So perhaps leaning into a little bit more receptive energy today while still maintaining a close connection with your more rational thought processes, being able to examine things dispassionately, acknowledging patterns where they exist and not trying to wish them away. That is one way to draw upon this energy and to perhaps proceed a bit more carefully today. Next up, our Celtic triad. It reads three improprieties of one who is Philly, to claim as their own work what the gods have done through them, to demand gain or pleasure as a servant of the mighty ones, to allow themselves to be kept by labor that is not their own. So, as a reminder, if you didn't catch earlier verses in which the Feely class were mentioned, a Feely in Celtic society was a professional poet and oftentimes a seer. The gods themselves, they might sometimes act through others as they would have acted through the Feely back in the day, but the credit for those results really does need to go to the gods themselves. The Feely was being used as a vessel, and that's something that in the modern craft we are all aware of. There are times when, we're acting under our own power or power that we have drawn from other sources using correspondences. That's what they're for. These are magical batteries. And then there are times when we simply acted as a vessel for a deity to accomplish something. And what was accomplished wasn't us. it was not us, it was the deity. And so remembering that and not giving people an exaggerated sense of our capabilities, I think that's an obligation that is still very much enforced, just as it was in pre-Christian Celtic society. So to just to remember and to remind ourselves of Feely and their modern counterparts, which again, witches, wizards, shamans, people of that sort, anyone who might have a more priestly calling, even the storytellers amongst us, we are essentially servants of the gods, and we should not be focusing on our own entitlement. That's where not demanding gain or pleasure. Through this particular work, if we have our sustenance and we're able to support ourselves, that really is enough. It isn't about a path of unbridled wealth or ridiculous amounts of fame or having this higher status and good opinion amongst others. The role really is to serve. And the that brings us into not being kept by labor that isn't their own. Feely, ancient or modern, should earn their own living, not be a burden upon others. This really does underscore the fact that those who have these more poetic, creative, and spiritual callings, there are standards to uphold. The gods do expect things of us, and while there has been a trend for some years for people to pretend like they answer to nothing and no one, and whatever they feel like doing is good enough. There's no standard that they should be held accountable to, that there is no accountability for them. I think we can start seeing how that is very adolescent and very unrealistic thinking. I would also encourage people to think about the Hermetic principle of as above, so below. The condition of man, human beings, even ones who have magical or creative callings, we're in the middle. There is just as much above us as there is below us. And so perhaps thinking about that, having a little bit of modesty and humility, it would probably serve us better than giving into the kind of thinking to where, oh, it's just all up to me and I don't have to think about anything else. Okay, that does forespell, but that tends to crash to a pretty sticky end. And it's important to remember that. Today's magical correspondences are cycles. The color is pink. The plant is the mushroom. I don't know if there actually is a pink mushroom, but it was an awfully pretty picture, and so I decided to use it. The animal is the snake. The crystal is rose quartz. When it comes to cycles, everything does come and go in its own time. All of the universe is traveling in a spiral. The past, present, and future are all echoes and reflections of each other. There's going to be common threads, even though things don't always precisely, exactly in every particular instance repeat themselves in exactly the same way. But the cycle itself, the meaning of the cycle, the pattern, that is what endures. And so, whether we find ourselves in patterns we actually need to break through free of, or if we find ourselves in patterns that are actually wholesome and upbuilding and that we do need to pursue, acknowledging how cycles actually exist and the conditions required for them to carry on, that's useful to us in our work. Next up, we have today's practice suggestions. And I believe this picture was intended to convey the romance between uh, who became the Wicked Witch of the West and the character Fiaro in the musical Wicked. And I'm sure plenty of people who watch this channel are very familiar with that musical and probably enjoy it. But I thought they made a good representation of this idea, which is the first thing on the docket of, do you have a favorite autumnal story in which there is a thrilling romance? And it could be any story. It could be a non-magical story, whatever else that it is. But is there something that gives you those autumn vibes where people are on this adventure and they're discovering love in each other and everything else? Do you have a favorite? I would really love to know because I'm always on the lookout for good stories. Then, next on the docket is what lesson can your natal Venus sign learn from the current Venus position? And with your third eye chakra, is your intuition being heightened? And if it is, this might be a good opportunity to hone some of your skills, learning how to effectively shield and block, because you can't have everything coming in at you all the time, but also learning how to take those shields down, learning to tap in into energies, learning to be a good, quiet listener of energy. These are things that we can all use our third eye chakra for. And of course, we're getting closer and closer to the thinnest point of the veil during the year, so might as well use that to good purpose. And then today's Hermetic principle is cause and effect. What examples of that do you see in action? You can probably think of 50 right now. And then for the witch's pyramid, we are looking at the interior today, and the interior is supposed to be filled with love. So, what kinds of love do you observe in this season? And it isn't just love between humans. Might be the love of animals, towards their young or whatever else that it is. Just where do you see this in action? Then for today's journal prompt, have you noticed a change in your dreamscape since the beginning of the month? Again, because the veil is starting to thin and we're starting to really notice the impact of that, that's even going to affect our sleeping cycles and the kind of dreams that we have. And the times when we have dreams and we wake up and we know that wasn't just a dream, that wasn't just the brain reorganizing its files. It means something. It has significance. So just making note of any of those little changes, there could be a significant pattern developing. So that is what I have for you today. Have an absolutely wonderful and magical day. If you would care to, you can follow the Blackbird Grimoire on both YouTube and Rumble. In recent days, you may have noticed that YouTube has had a few cranky fits towards people who have opinions of which they do not approve. Now, I think for the most part, this channel kind of flies under that radar just because I don't think the algorithm is really looking for dissidents amongst pagan channels because so many of our brothers and sisters have sadly been caught up in the leftist politics and the authoritarianism that goes right along with that. And so they're not necessarily looking for me, but I'm sure every so often I do appear as a little blip on their radar. So just in case YouTube decides that I am unnecessary for their happiness, I do encourage you to at least subscribe to me on Rumble. That way, if anything unfortunate happens to my channel, you can still follow the content there. It won't completely go away. So, only other thing is to remind you that you are welcome to join the Oak and Elder Witchery on Gilded. Link in the description if you would care to. And I think that does do it for the day. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.